This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 183. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
And Sam.
Hey.
So, we took a week off because holiday.
Holidays.
Also, this may be like a year where we take lots of weeks off because the timing of the schedule makes like our Saturday night happen in the Christmas holiday and the New Year's holiday.
Yeah.
So
those might just not happen.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I mean, we've done 183 episodes, so I think we're okay. We've done several. This week we are doing the Divinity Original Sin 2 show, which was our what month was it originally our game of the month?
October.
And then it got rescheduled to November. So yeah, Ash, this was your game. Tell us why you picked this game.
Divinity Original Sin 2 is the sequel to Divinity Original Sin, which was an RPG that was interesting and had an interesting co-op aspect. And Original Sin 2 decided to add more players co-op. And also a significantly better start and generally more interesting story. So I think it'd be worth a shot.
So I guess the initial question that we usually do is, how far did everybody make it?
Not very.
Yeah.
It's a really big game.
It's a really big game.
I kind of bounced really hard off this game.
I got to what I guess the end of the beginning is basically what I got to.
I got to the end of the beginning like 3 separate times.
You mean got on the boat or escaped the fort?
Escaped the fort. But like what I kept doing and what was weird was I would play it and I'd keep on finding like, oh, I kind of want to try this a slightly different way. And so I'd restart it as a new character. And
I have had like 4 different characters go through the fort now.
The replayability is insanity to the point where like it's almost a completely different, basically if you're playing different characters, it's almost a completely different game, like just with the same set pieces.
A bit on the structure. You have some sort of overarching goals, which are like, escape Fort Joy, keep your collar off. And then you have each character as individual and sometimes conflicting goals, which goes into something we'll probably talk about in a bit. But each character has their own things to do in the fort, and they are sometimes very different things.
I made it a bit through the fort, and did quite a few like side quests on the fort, but I kept stalling out because I don't know, like for lack of a better term, this game feels very tedious to me. And the thing that just kept driving me insane was it just took a long time to move around.
Yes, that is my biggest frustration.
Movement is slow, and it just, I don't know, like to the point where I waffled back and forth whether or not I download a cheat from Steam Workshop that lets me move fast. And like I was bought in on the boat, and some of the fort I was enjoying, but it was so slow to move around that I don't know, like it was a struggle.
That's like the one big complaint I have with this game. And I had it with the first one as well, where it's like, okay, I'm here and I just completed something and now I need to go way over here, and even fast travel doesn't put me close enough to where I can't it doesn't put me close enough. I just have to click and then wait.
Yeah.
It does take a very long time to get more than 2 fast travel points in the start of the game as well.
Yeah.
Like you get the one on the beach and then the one in the middle of the fort, and then you won't see another one until you fight your way through the fort.
Yeah. And it's like even just the size of the fort was enough where it was just, it takes a very long time to just physically walk anywhere. Which is a pity because there's really, really, really cool stuff. Every time you're doing something, it's awesome and I love it. Whether that's talking to somebody, whether that's committing larceny, whether that's like fighting things, solving puzzles, talking to people. Like all of these things are interesting. It's just walking from point A to point B is not.
And there's a lot of walking from point A to point B.
Yes.
I mean, and that's the thing is like if you had the occasional slog across a zone, that'd be one thing. But a lot of what I was doing was going one place and then going to a different place, then going back to the other place.
Yeah, I understand if you feel the movement was a little slow, the beginning would be really rough because it is very undirected. You're in a fort. You want to escape, you want to get your collar off. What do you do?
Yeah. And I feel like this it reminds me of the first one in a couple of ways. Like I think it's better. It gives me a little bit more impetus in than the first one.
Rather than solve this murder?
Yeah, rather than like, hey, here's a town, solve this murder. And it's like I feel like it needs to be I don't know. I feel like it needed to be a little bit more directed because it really is just like here's this. It's really and rightfully in love with how wide and open and how many things there are to do. And there are a whole ton of things to do, and a lot of them are really interesting, but it like floods you with them before you're fully invested, I think.
But and I feel like okay, so I'm going to call back to Tyranny a little bit. I mean, these are two games that are doing a lot of the same things, but Tyranny had a bit more of an on-ramp to direct you towards what you should be doing, and it was relatively short sequences to get there. And this feels like it let you out on your own a little too early, maybe. Tyranny
has one of the very first things you do in Tyranny puts you on a timer.
Right. So there is a call to action. I mean, I realize Tyranny and Divinity Original Sin do a lot of different things, but that's also the last one of these games that I played before this one.
That's fair.
So I played mostly in an online session with Ash and Tam, and I think that might have soured me a bit on this game, because I don't know that I think playing I don't know if it's that this game isn't as powerful of multiplayer, or if it's this game isn't good at multiplayer unless you know how to play this game very well.
There were a bunch of things going on there, starting with the thing I said on the podcast shortly after the game came out. I think one of the characters is not good. Not a good choice for a playable character.
Yeah.
Sabille is like putting a chaotic evil character in your D&D party.
Yes.
See, I find Sabille really interesting.
Sabille
is disruptive because she kills everyone.
Yeah, like Sabille is a really interesting character, but she is working at total odds to basically every single other character.
Yes, I will agree with that. And as a result, it's like I am actively causing problems with the decisions that my character probably should be making.
Yeah.
And like getting us way in over our heads. To the point where we had to
do that.
Yeah, to the point where we managed to get TPK'd like 4 times in a like 4-hour session, and it's a lot. Like the game does not autosave enough, and it's a long load process.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with Ash on this one in that I think almost all of the characters are great. Some of them are a little boring, but I think generally they're great.
Ifan is a little boring.
Ifan is a little boring. But like
Ifan was the most Bell character, so that's who I played.
It's true. Yeah, I took him as my companion most of the time because he gets along well with the rest of the party.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing is like you've got Ifan who gets along well with the rest of the party. You've got Losa, who I think is awesome and gets along mostly well with the rest of the party. You've got weirdly the Red Prince, who more or less gets along well with the rest of the party. Like occasionally there'll be some back and forth that you're not expecting with him, and even like Fane gets along shockingly well with the rest of the party.
Okay, my problem with Red Prince, and this happened 2 times to me, that I was moving across the map, and next thing I know, he's in a totally different area talking to somebody else, and I'm not in that dialogue.
Whoops.
I have no idea how that happened.
Well, the thing is, running around with the fort with Red Prince, he gets assassination attempts made on him. So that's a thing that can happen.
Yeah, so like he's in combat, and I've got to find my way over there and figure out where the hell he's at to help save him.
It's possible to wander the wrong way and get jumped as the Red Prince really, really early.
Yeah.
Although the game in general has a bit of a problem with that.
Letting you get in dramatically over your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a decision that they let you do that.
It is, but I feel like they'd let you do it very frequently with no warning. Like, you have no way of knowing that this is a bad thing to do until you're dead.
Part of that is level differences, which matter too much in the early game.
Yeah.
The difference between level 2 and level 3 is huge, and same for 3 and 4. So fighting level 2 turtles is great. Fighting level 3 crocodiles, not so much, until you are also level 3.
Yeah.
Fighting Griff's gang is a thing you don't really want to do until you can one-turn Griff.
Which, you can get into that very quickly by just not showing enough respect for Griff.
It's true, you can. Although, to be fair, he does try to warn you.
Yeah, although there are situations where you can get into a dialogue with someone not knowing who they are and then not be able to exit that dialogue without it being a fight.
Yeah.
And I think that's frustrating. Because you can get into a situation where you're like, oh, I should not have talked to this person. This is going to be bad. Can I exit this in any way? Oh, no, I have to fight them now.
If you make it past that, they're entertaining the Cave of the Fire Slugs, where if you have a pet pal, you can talk to them and find out interesting things and attempt to not disrupt their royal court and get into a fight anyway.
I feel like Pet Pal is still a much-needed perk.
Pet pal is still a required talent. Ethan will have it if you don't play as him, regardless of what class he is.
I really need to play a character with Pet Pal so I can talk to that stupid cat. I really want to know what that cat's deal is. Because it follows me around and then dies. Like, gets murdered by somebody.
It has a really annoying tendency to die. There's one guard at the gate with a dog next to him who hates cats.
Yeah, he just murdered the cat. I was like, oh, well.
Just murder the cat.
That sucks. Poor cat.
If you make it out of the fort with the cat, you become a summon familiar spell.
I mean, is that a thing I want?
If you are not a summoner, yes, probably.
Huh, okay.
Because you can... It's weird. It doesn't do a whole lot on its own, but it has an ability that lets you trade places with it.
Okay, that's fair then.
So it's useful. It's weird, though, because if the Red Prince is in your party, I think it will automatically go to him.
Weird.
Or at least it'll start following him if you pick up the Red Prince before you find the cat. There's lots of little weird things.
There's
lots of little weird things. Which is really the thing I probably like the most about this game.
Yeah, I love how many bizarre little interactions and interwoven threads there are going on. Like how if you're Fane and you talk to the same person with different masks on, if they're one of the named characters, they'll be like, wait a second, I know you, sort of.
So does the game get a little bit less uneven as you get leveled up then?
A little bit. I didn't run into that problem again up to getting on the boat, so
I find it really interesting that this game is one of those games that has so many different ways you can play it and so many different activities that different players would find interesting. And I think when you have that going in a multiplayer game, it kind of becomes a mess because everyone is sort of doing their own thing and not necessarily realizing when they're stomping over each other.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of like chaos that goes on.
Yeah, like that was definitely my experience with the original Divinity. Was like I would get pulled into a conversation that somebody else was having and like then somehow get teleported to another person because they did a zone transition and feel like I was being drug along and not really feeling like I knew what was going on. And I felt that way as far with regards to the story as well this time through, because you guys were doing these conversations and I was not part of them, and as a result, I really did not know what was going on in the fort.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good writing that if you're playing multiplayer, you can just miss. It sort of transforms into a completely different sort of game.
Yeah, and this is where I was like thinking after the fact, I probably needed to have played through the game first before I play it multiplayer. So I don't have to worry necessarily about the story, like losing track of the story.
Yeah, at this point I've played the intro quite a few times, so I don't mind so much if other people are just running the story parts of it.
But yeah, until you actually play through it, it's hard to get there. That being said, I like the Agent of Chaos Like I like being the sidekick where it's like I don't really know what's going on. I'm doing my own thing. But when I played it solo, I was like, oh wow, there's a whole lot of really good writing here that I'd mostly been ignoring. It puts me in mind of playing a D&D game with players who are not always out for the same things.
Yes.
But without necessarily having the DM sort of maneuvering people back into place. It's like playing a D&D game. It's like playing a D&D campaign. A bunch of players who are all out doing their own things, and a DM that has their notes and isn't good at manipulating players. So that just sort of goes off into chaos, and every so often the DM is like, well, this person did this and this person did this and this would be the result, and oh god, everyone's dead.
So one of the commentaries that I have about this game is that it feels like it does a lot of really interesting spellcasting things, but not a whole lot that's interesting in the way of melee things, because it's kind of
takes a while to get there.
The boilerplate, melee options that every game has.
One of my favorite abilities is a warfare ability called Phoenix Dive. You literally Dragoon jump somewhere and set everything around you on fire.
Oh, it does take too long. Like, I think you could set up interesting combos with magic right off the bat, but you can't quite get there with melee right off the bat.
I feel like melee is just stronger than magic, though.
But yes, it makes up for it by melee just being stronger than magic.
Like, if I give somebody a two-hander, they can just sort of mow stuff down. Whereas it takes, usually several spells to get there, unless I use a silly spell like Self-Destruct. That is actually a spell. I don't remember what it's actually called. Deals a bunch of fire damage to you and everything around you. The key is to be highly resistant to fire.
Yeah. I did enjoy playing Thane as a poison fire mage.
I guess what I mean as well is a lot of the interesting cause and effect things that happen in the game, just in gameplay, are mostly exploited by spells.
Yes.
Like the you're wet now. Let's shock the hell out of everything.
Yeah, you sort of
can eventually get a weapon that does shock damage, or you can if you have one arrow third, you can combine it with a warfare book and start swinging for electricity.
But yeah, it's really hard to just be like, I'm not doing any magic. You sort of You sort of need to. I mean, the game is also a game about sorcerers, so. But still, there's no good way to be like, yeah, I don't really interact. You have to interact with the magic system at some level. I think you also have to interact with the melee system. It doesn't really let you get away with skipping one or the other.
I mean, you can skip both if you're an archer.
Yeah, that's fair, because they made archers really good.
You might still want to invest in Phoenix Dive.
So did anybody play with any of the user-created content?
I didn't.
User-created? God, I didn't even know that was a thing.
There are a lot of mods for this game.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
no, it's
up
got
to including additional campaigns.
Right, it's basically got Neverwinter Night style creation capabilities.
Doesn't it also have a GM mode?
It does. I have no idea if it's any good. It seems like it would be rather difficult to run.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like insanity. I mean, from having tried it in Neverwinter Nights, DMing a game in Neverwinter Nights Live is insanity. P.S. Neverwinter Nights' DM mode was like, hey, can you write C++ on the fly? And I'm like, no, what? No.
It was
great. Like, well, this isn't going to work for you then.
Yeah, you're going to need to build a set of tools in C script. Go for it.
Yeah, that you're going to edit. You're going to need to edit on the fly. There's no way to get around if you're playing with players that are doing literally anything other than walking from point A to point B and talking to the person you want them to talk to at the time you want them to talk to them. You're going to have to be writing scripts on the fly in C++.
Yeah. I mean, I do kind of want to play around with the character creation or the content creation capabilities, because I had a lot of fun back when Neverwinter Nights was released, making stuff. I made a whole EverQuest planar raid style thing that had a token system that dropped from certain bosses, but I didn't mess around too much with the Steam Workshop, because I had heard that pretty much any mod that you run flips off achievements permanently.
Yeah, loading into the campaign with a mod running will disable achievements.
For that campaign?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, you could start a new game and it would be achievement eligible, but that one it no longer will be.
Yeah, that was the big reason why I didn't go find something that increased movement speed.
I just don't care about achievements, so...
That and keeping items from being added to your hotbars, which is the most popular mod in the workshop.
What? The thing that stops item? Wait, what?
Most popular mod in Steam Workshop is a mod that keeps items you pick up from being automatically added to your hotbar.
Oh god, that sounds amazing.
That was a bit of a minor complaint, yes.
I feel like my hotbar was useless almost immediately. Like, it had too much stuff on it and it was confusing, like, basically instantly.
Like, before you left the ship,
yeah,
you had just random stuff sitting on your hotbar that you didn't know why it was there.
Yeah, this is worse if you play Fane, by the way.
Why is that?
Because when Fane transforms into... Like, when Fane pretends to be another race, he gets those races' abilities.
Oh.
So...
You
but
have
it
a bunch
doesn't...
of abilities you can't actually use on your hotbar at
well,
all times.
not until you switch to that race.
Sure.
But, like, I switched to a human and got some buttons on my bar. And then I was like, oh, that's neat. Let's try an elf. Oh, there's 4 more buttons on my bar. Now my bar is full. Like, my 24-button bar is full. But on the other hand, I think that I love the turn-based isometric combat. Because it does all of the things that I feel like were interesting about Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale and all, those sorts of games without that, like, this, like, real time with pause nonsense. Like, it's way more elegant while being way more interesting because it's turn-based, it can be more complicated. I do think that it is a lot less like the original Final Fantasy Tactics than the first game was, in that in the first one you could find some just insanely broken combos. Like, oh, I'm going to make it rain, which seems like a totally useless spell except for all of the water surfaces it creates, and then I electrify all the water surfaces, and now melee guys can't get to me.
Enemies get the turn.
Yeah, and I feel like they corrected that, but I think they overcorrected it to the point where that's not as effective anymore. Like, you've got to break someone's magic armor before you can afflict them with magic debuffs. But by the time you do that, most things are dead. And so it kind of just sets you up for just go for overwhelming offense. But overwhelming offense is better accomplished by melee? I don't know.
Well, and then I feel like you fall back into the problem of melee being the least interesting option right out of the gate.
What was I playing? My most progressed game, I was playing Red Prince as a staff-wielding mage using warfare abilities, because warfare abilities work with melee weapons, and staff is a two-handed melee weapon that scales with intelligence. So I was wandering around in melee, setting things on fire, and then smashing them with a fire staff.
That sounds pretty funny.
It was pretty effective, except for the part where my armor wasn't all that hot.
Yeah, that seems like a limitation. But I love the surfaces concept. Like, there's a whole bunch of environmental effects, and the areas you're fighting in can dramatically alter your approach. And I like that a lot. I feel like the way you're intended to interact with those as a melee class is with, like, oil potions or poison potions that you throw at people, and they create you basically try to become Batman and have like a flask of whatever that you throw at people.
I mean, there's also the option of don't, because there are some melee abilities that clear surfaces.
I did not know there were melee abilities that create surfaces.
Clear surfaces.
Oh, the clear surfaces. Oh, that seems like negating part of what makes the game really cool.
Battle Stomp knocks down enemies in front of you and clears any surfaces it hits. It is amazingly useful.
So one of the things that frustrated me a lot, just in the movement capabilities, was that the automated movement seemed not very smart. Like, it would straight up walk through fire, even though there was a clear path, which was annoying as shit, because, like, I would forget about this sometimes as I was moving back and forth between areas, and I hadn't necessarily cleared all of the fire, but I cleared enough to move around.
So at one point, I feel like the game updated and I stopped having that problem as much.
I mean, I just was playing today and I had that happen to me.
It definitely...
For the most part, it will make an attempt to not walk If you try to tell it to go somewhere and it can move slightly to get around fire, it will. But if it's directly on the other side of the fire patch, it'll probably just walk through the fire.
And for me, like, certain characters seem to be worse at this because Red Prince was always walking through fire.
I feel like that's just your experience.
I do know that Fane, for possibly obvious reasons, never once even attempted to avoid walking through poison surfaces.
I mean, that makes sense.
But I also don't care. Like, that's good, since...
Doesn't that get him health back?
Yeah, it heals him.
Like, if you get up to, what is it? If you get up to full fire resist, characters will also stop walking around fire.
It's a game I definitely want to spend more time with.
I also kind of feel like it's one of those games that I have to be in the right frame of mind to play.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like I wish that this game supported more pick up, like, short play sessions. But this game doesn't actually support short play sessions because it's kind of a complex story and it's easy to lose the thread. It can be hard to figure that out.
I think that
the journal helps a little bit because unlike most quest journals which tell you what you're doing, the journal just tells you what you did.
Yeah.
With maybe some hints as to who somebody told you to talk to next.
I feel like one of the coolest ways to play this game would be if you could set up a local LAN with a handful, with like up to 4 people, and play it all in the same room, so that you can have like much more live communication about what's going on, and have, like, in theory, everybody be on board with the story and kind of, like, I don't know, coordinated. Especially if the game were fully voiced and you could hear the voicing, but it's not.
I mean, isn't it?
I feel like it isn't.
All the dialogue is voiced. I turn off the narrator voice because it bothers me, but including the narrator, everything is voiced.
Huh, okay. For some reason, maybe I have the narrator voice turned off, and so it made me think that it wasn't fully voiced. This game has made me laugh with its dialogue so many times, and I love that. Because it's definitely telling a serious story, but it's also kind of wacky sometimes.
This is just, I associate this with Larian at this point.
Yeah, like...
Divinity 2 was the first game I played from them, and it was entirely like that and caught me off guard, because I did not expect it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be...
There are serious moments, but then all of a sudden there's just crazy off-the-wall moments, and...
It's a serious story, but a lot of the writing is not.
Yeah.
Like, you can read minds in that game. Sometimes you're not going to get a serious thought.
Yeah, and I don't know, I really enjoy that. It's honestly the thing that keeps me coming back to these games, is just that, because it does hit like a really broad, I don't know, I hesitate to say that it hits a really broad emotional palette, but it does blend like deadly serious and off the wall funny and like irreverent and reverent at the same time.
See, if you like that style of what Larian does, I would totally suggest, especially for you, Tam, playing what was it, Divinity Dragon Commander?
Dragon Commander?
Yeah. I think Tam would like that game.
That's
because it's like
probably accurate.
Part 4X, part StarCraft, part role-playing game. It's weird, but it's good. I enjoyed it.
Larian also gets some credit for breaking the streak that I had of games where you play as a dragon and not called Spyro are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. But just, it makes me think, like, there are other studios that could make this game. Like, if this game were made by Obsidian, for example, it would be so serious. And I think it would lose a lot in that transition.
I mean, Tyranny managed to be not entirely serious.
Tyranny managed to be not entirely serious, but it was...
But on the other hand, there is Pillars of Eternity.
Yeah, Pillars of Eternity was what I was thinking about. I mean, I also think of like Pillars of Eternity is sort of where I went with that. And there's a few other games as well. Like Tyranny isn't always serious, and I feel like Tyranny was such a dark premise they had to kind of pull it back from being just a depressing, oppressive game. Whereas Pillars isn't that, and as a result, it's like serious fantasy McSerious face, and it feels like it doesn't know how to laugh, or it only knows how to laugh darkly or sardonically. Whereas like you start a character as anybody other than Losa, and you run into Losa on the boat, and like I'm a talking skeleton, and Losa is Losa is like an internationally recognized bard. So these kids are like, sing a song for us. It's the internationally recognized bard. And she's like, hey, husband, let's away from these children. And you can play along or not. And it's like this laughably terrible attempt on her part. And it's really funny while she's on a prison ship. So not really taking it super seriously, but she's still a bard. That's kind of the point.
Speaking of which, the tag system is my favorite parts about character creation in this game.
Oh, the tag system is great.
I realized that the origin characters have their own predetermined tags, but as a custom character, you can just pick 2. These are things like Scholar or Mystic or Barbarian or Joker. And it turns out, though, you're stuck with the ones you pick, but it's possible to get more through course of play. The origin characters also have a tag for their own name. So like Ethan has a tag called Ethan, which will sometimes open up dialogue options based on who he is, which usually involve threatening people and knowledge of the criminal underworld.
Yeah. Whereas Losa has Losa, and you can play as an internationally recognized bard. And so people have heard of you.
All of Sabile's are the options we were talking about where it causes problems. Because they're mostly, hey, I see you're a lizard. What type of lizard are you? Oh, you're a lizard of war? I'm going to kill you now.
Yeah, I feel like the game could have benefited from offering a different set of characters for single player and multiplayer. Because I bet Sabile is perfectly fine at single player.
Yeah, that like I'm playing with her through the single player campaign. It's fun.
Yeah, and like Losa is way less interesting if it's just you playing versus you playing with other people. Because like Losa's whole thing is she's possessed by something, and this occasionally causes her to go nuts. And, like, that could be a problem. And you can engineer these, it's like, you can engineer these situations where, like, maybe your party tries to put you down real quick so that you stop, trying to kill everybody around you or kill some specific person. And, like, that's an interesting multiplayer dynamic.
Yeah, I wish the, character objectives felt like they were less opposed to each other.
Yeah.
Again, most of them aren't, at least initially. The story does eventually reveal that, no, you are actually going to come in conflict with the rest of your party, like it or not.
Mostly not.
One of the major plot points is that Alexander is supposedly going to ascend, but he's not going to ascend. Somebody in your party is going to ascend, but it's only going to be one of you. So, maybe you should sort this out.
Interesting. So typically it's the main character, but in a multiplayer game, somebody has to pick.
I have no idea how they actually sort that out. That is, after all, the end of the game. Haven't been there.
I really want more multiplayer RPGs.
I agree. I kind of want to see one that works, though.
We've played them. We've played ones that have worked. Like, I think Borderlands works great.
That's true. Although...
And MMOs in general work pretty well.
Grindia was pretty amazing in multiplayer.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I feel like...
It's worth noting, all of those games are real time.
Yes.
Combat gets bogged down in multiplayer a lot. Which is, again, I feel like if you had 4 people sitting in a room on a LAN playing, I could be like, hey, it's your turn. And it's less jarring than, like... even playing disconnectedly, it's easy to be like, well, there's a bunch of turns before mine. I'm going to pay attention to something else for a bit. Oh, whoops, I missed the start of my turn. And it slows the whole thing down. But yeah, like real time helps. And I feel like there's a lot of those things, like how do you deliver story? How do you deliver interesting interactive story in a multiplayer setting? Well,
you can vote on it, like in
Right.
Hunters.
Well,
yeah.
like, and honestly, like, I thought that worked fairly well in SWTOR. when you're doing dungeon dialogue, I mean, it often caused you to take an option that you wouldn't have normally wanted to take, but it flowed pretty well.
Yeah. And I feel like with more games of this type being created, there's more iteration that would smooth out some of the rough edges. Because I like this game a lot, but it has a lot of rough edges. And I feel like part of the reason it's got rough edges is because not many people are making this kind of game. And so it's hard to... I can't think of very many games that are doing similar things as this. What?
It's kind of just this.
Yeah. Like,
if you want multiplayer anyway.
Exactly.
If you want this style of game, well, Heroes of Eternity really did help bring it back.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. But I also... But like, there's nobody figuring
out... There's no multiplayer
out...
in that game. There's no multiplayer in New Torment. There's no multiplayer in Wasteland 2.
Yeah. Because it's a hard problem to solve. You need a lot of people kind of banging on that problem to figure out how to tell a good story in a multiplayer setting. I mean, D&D's been battling with that for decades because it's not easy.
D&D's come up with some interesting solutions over the years.
Yeah. I mean, from across the whole spectrum, from de-emphasizing story to being as simulation-y as possible and like making players sort it out. Because part of me wonders, what if you had this game on like a single screen, Crystal Chronicles style interface where you can see and hear what's going on because everybody's always on the same page. Like you're constrained in where you can go, so you're always in the same scene. That could work. Sort of drill more down into the story and less on the like wander off and do your own crazy thing. But I think that would help like keep the story front and center, even if you're playing with a bunch of different people.
Maybe allow for people to like vote on where they want to go next. Keep everyone there, but like everyone sort of has a say, hey, we all want to go here next.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a thing where your space is you have much smaller spaces, and you vote on which direction you go next, which exit you take to the next scene.
I mean, this is a completely different style of game, but D&D Tower of Doom and Shadows of Mystaria, which were arcade beat-em-ups, had a interesting path-choosing mechanic to where there were multiple ways to get from point A to point B, and at the end of a scene, everyone basically put their vote in for where to go next, and the one that won was where you ended up going.
This also kind of brings you back to Moonhunters.
Yeah. I think Moonhunters was great at that.
Moonhunters was great at a lot of things, and I hope the Switch version is a success for them.
Yeah. I mean, I'll buy it on Switch for 100% that reason.
There are so many cool things about this game. Like, the music is really good, and the fact that you choose an instrument for your character is also kind of interesting.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. You're right. There's so many little cool things about this.
Yeah, you get like a little fanfare on that instrument when you like kill something or finish combat or what have you.
I mean, the first game was an extremely intricate game, and they've sort of just built on top of that by a large amount.
They did simplify some things. The way AP works, the way stats work, those are dramatically less complicated than the first game.
Yeah. It's definitely a nice streamlining. I mean, I look forward to the next game they make, hopefully.
I have no idea what they said they're going to do next. I mean, the next thing they're likely to release is this game on consoles.
Yeah.
After that, who knows?
Do we have any further comments before we talk about the next game of the month?
I like this game and definitely want to spend more time with it.
Yeah. I'm
not sure entirely lived up to its promise as a multiplayer experience, however.
Yeah, I want to play this single player, and then I want to play it multiplayer, is sort of my reaction.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But I find myself really wanting to do both things. I don't know when I'd have the time for it, but...
Yes. Well, especially given the next game of the month.
We don't even know the next game of the month.
Oh, we don't. Who knows?
I'll change it now.
I mean, Tam would probably change the game of the month just to spite us.
You should see me looking through my Steam library now. It's gonna be Shadow Tactics, Blades of the Shogun now.
You know what? Okay.
It'll be Putt Putt Goes to Jail.
What? Wait, what?
I don't think that's a thing. I hope it's not a thing.
Was part of my childhood. Turns out that game is real short if you know what you're doing. Damn, it's going to make us play Mages in Australia.
It's not going to be that.
It'd be Pyre.
I feel like Divinity Original Sin 2 is definitely a good game. It's just a very complicated game, and I was not in the right frame of mind when I attempted it this time, but I'm hoping to return to it later.
This game, like several other games of the month, definitely suffered by being the game of the month when we were all pretty into a MMO.
Yep.
A little bit.
Okay, so, Tam, moment of truth. What is our next game of the month to straddle December and January? Or at least I think it's supposed to straddle December and January, isn't it?
I think it usually does, just because the holidays makes it hard to play much of anything.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to be weird with this one, because there are two games that I would really like to play and talk about, and I'm happy with either one of them. So I figure we can figure it out live on the show. It sounds great. But basically, I played Persona 5 earlier this year. I found it amazing. I would love to talk about this game and what makes it great and what makes it super flawed, because it is both of those things. And it's a game I've put I've put almost as much thought into Persona 5 this year as I have Horizon Zero Dawn, for different reasons, but I find it really fascinating, and there's some conversations I want to have about that one. But they're all super spoilery for unsurprising reasons. And the other one is Dreamfall Chapters, which has come up a handful of times because it's sort of the conclusion of the classic adventure game series. It manages to be an adventure game series that has bridged the adventure games are dead chasm, and I never quite get around to sitting down to play it. But I am leery of making the game Persona 5 because I realize that is an undertaking.
Yeah.
But by the same token, if we're ever going to do it, it needs to be over a 2-month span.
Yep.
I mean, Dreamfall Chapters is also not a short game. It's not as long as Persona 5.
It's true.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like it's about a quarter of a Persona 5.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to play Persona 5. I'm probably going to be interested in doing it. I don't know that I'm going to get to the end, and I don't know how important getting to the end of that game is to talk about it.
I mean, it's a dense game. There's a lot to talk about. But also, it's also a big game.
I mean, we made it through FF15.
We did make it through FF15.
Although I will say that was the one of the last games I played before I had a kid.
I mean, to be totally fair, Persona 5 does lend itself a little bit better than FF15 to I need to stop playing this at any given second, which was another reason that I kind of considered it, is because the entire thing is turn-based. If you need to get up and do something else all of a sudden, it's pretty good for that.
I'm willing to put the effort forward on that one. I've wanted to play it. I've played about half of a Persona 4 as well.
If it were possible to play that on a accessible platform, I would have already made it my game of the month 1 month. Played New Game Plus again.
Well, Sega has been releasing things for PC, so maybe someday.
Maybe someday. Well, given that, we're going to go with Persona 5 then.
Okay.
It will be a stylish holiday season.
So incredibly stylish.
So very stylish. And it'll give me the excuse that I've been looking for to play New Game Plus, because oh wow, did I want to play New Game Plus in this game. P.S. Do yourselves a favor, play it on easy. Don't just play it on easy.
I'm playing it on normal, but yes. Yes.
And the other benefit is, it's holiday season. It's been out a while. There's probably some places you can pick it up at a discount. I would not be shocked if it's on the PSN store on a deal at some point.
I think it was earlier, but not anymore.
It has been, but currently is not.
I mean, I actually picked this up when it came out. I just haven't gotten around to playing it But it does have the benefit of being remote playable fairly well because it's turn-based.
You mean like on a Vita?
Or anything like a PC client.
Wait, what?
There's a
You
PC
can
remote play.
PS4 games on the PC.
Huh.
I mean, there's occasional lag, but I mean, it's fairly
Turn-based.
decent. Yeah, for turn-based, it's great. Like, for things like Destiny, it does not work at all. But, I mean, you can even play some platformers fairly well that way. But yeah, no, it's a fairly good official remote play client. That's honestly how I played the majority of Final Fantasy 15.
Huh.
I think
But
the
even
Game
that's
Awards
it.
are next weekend, so we'll see how things go. Persona 5 is the only JRPG that I think has been nominated for Game of the Year since those awards have been created. It's not going to win because Zelda is going to win, but, you know, at least it's there.
I think I kind of voted Horizon Zero Dawn for every category that Horizon Zero Dawn was votable. Except for, like, the soundtrack, and that was to Destiny 2.
It's okay, the user vote doesn't count for anything anyway. So no. Persona 5 is one of 2 games that I've listened to the soundtrack before I started playing the game. The other game is Pyre.
I've been listening to the Persona 5 soundtrack for the last 10 months. Like, almost unbroken.
I mean, I mostly want to play, admittedly, because I want to understand what all the cosplay is all about.
The game does provide a lot of cosplay opportunities, and somewhat overwhelming amount, in fact. You got not quite the full party at PAX.
I was close. I was missing mostly male characters.
Yes. Nobody wants to be Skull.
Nobody wants to be Skull. He's less annoying than Yosuke or Teddy.
See, I like
Talk about
Yosuke.
low bars there.
It's fair.
I also didn't completely dislike Yosuke.
Right, like, I didn't dislike Yosuke. I mean, I did dislike Teddy.
Oh man, do I dislike Teddy. P.S. P5's mascot character, way less annoying than Teddy.
You know, some people disagree with you, but those people are wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they're welcome to be wrong. They're entitled to be wrong. They're allowed. But yes, For the Winter, a game about finding joy in darkness, and a lot of other things.
A lot of other things.
Well, on that note, I guess we will wrap things up. As always, we would love to hear your opinions on Divinity Original Sin 2. Also, hopefully you'll be joining us in playing Persona 5. And we will see you next week with a regular show. Good night!
Good night.
See you.
Good night.